Well, how nasty do you want Garuda to be? Well, no, not that kind of nasty, but if you want, you know what I'm saying. But in all seriousness, how nasty do you want Garuda to be? I have two crazy synergistic builds here for you guys. And oh boy, they're gonna be such a blast for you to try out. What's good, folks? It's Nightmare Frame here with a new Warframe video, taking a look at Garuda, the emo bird lady, because she likes cutting herself. Garuda is known for many things, and one of the best things she's known for is that she doesn't really need to run efficiency on her builds because of her bloodletting, where she sacrificed some of her HP to get back energy. And here's another thing that people don't even know, is that when she activates this ability, she cleanses herself of status effects. The synergy with this ability is that if you can get some sort of healing ability, you can infinitely have energy. But the problem is, the second ability locks you into an area, so you don't have the freedom of movement. That's why I have two types of builds. One that uses that second ability, but also has you nuke hordes of enemies, while the other build has more freedom, while giving you bonus elemental damage that also affects her first and fourth ability. For those who didn't know, her ward and her talons are coded as weapons. That's why Vigor Swamp and Arcane Arachne can affect them. But here's another thing, elemental damage multipliers also affect these abilities. Here's something that everybody should know about Seeking Talons. This ability is meant to deal damage, of course. However, enemies that don't die to this ability are then marked, and all of these marked enemies are now prone to bleeding, meaning any source of damage that you dish out to enemies will also apply the bleed status effects. So let's start off with our first build that uses the Helminth ability Nourish. Nourish gives you the viral elemental damage multiplier and an energy multiplier. This energy multiplier increases the energy income from all sources. That means it also affects the energy income from bloodletting. Not only that, this viral elemental damage actually affects Dread Mirror and her talents because they're coded as weapons. But then some of you might be wondering, how are you actually healing? I thought you said you need to have some healing so that you can have infinite energy. But here's the cool thing, is that if you use an arcane called Reconstruct, casting any form of ability that consumes energy will heal you and your allies. And the cool part about this build, you're going to be using all of your abilities. Here's another cool thing that you also need to know about Seeking Talons. Now, if Nourish gives me a viral elemental damage multiplier, viral is known to deal a lot of damage to armor-stripped, clone-fleshed enemies. It also affects all sorts of health damage, but it also debuffs damage done to health, meaning it increases the damage done to it by 325%. And bleeds deal damage straight to the health. Do you see where this is going? So it's pretty much like modding viral and hunter munitions on your weapons. But the cool part is we don't need to do that since we can bleed enemies and we have the viral elemental damage. At the same time, my Dread Mirror, when charged up, can deal a lot of damage, but is also affected by elemental damage. So this is a very synergistic loadout. One of the best things about Garuda is also her passive. Notice at the bottom right corner, you have this weird symbol. Every enemy kill fills us up 5% at a time, increasing your final damage. So it's like having a pocket eclipse. Notice how I just filled it up right now by 35%. 65%. This damage buff does decay over time, so keep killing. This damage buff affects her weapons and her abilities, so giving you some additional damage scaling. Okay, here we are in Steel Path. To demonstrate the first build, I'm first going to start off with 2 Void Slings since I'm using the Madurai Focus School. 2 Void Slings, and now we get the beautiful Sling Strength. This gives me 40% strength to all of my ability casts for the next 20 seconds. And I also have Power Transfer. When I perform a transference back into my Warframe, I gain 50% casting speed, which is just another natural talent. So after the 2 Void Slings, I will cast Nourish. See how fast I casted that ability? Yes. And now our third ability. Pay attention to my energy bar. That's insane how much energy we get in return. I will use my fourth ability to prime enemies with the mark, and then every type of damage that I deal will then bleed them. 2 Void Slings, Nourish, fourth ability, and kill your enemies. And if you want additional defenses, use your Dread Mirror. See how that enemy was one-shotted because he was on the threshold. When you're at like 30% or 20%, correct me if I'm wrong, you will one-shot enemies. Press the fourth ability and boom! Everything dies. But I have my Dread Mirror. I can use this as a DPS ability to nuke everything inside, as you just saw there. I really don't care how much energy I spend because I'm always going to be topped up and I'm healing myself. Notice my health and energy just fluctuating like crazy. And for those wondering, what weapon is he using? Don't worry, we'll get there. It is a kit gun, something you probably forgot even existed. But the cool thing about this kit gun is that it's AoE, has infinite ammo, and I don't even have to worry about reloading. Notice how I can just spam this AoE weapon. So for those who don't want to use the Envoy and using the Bloodforge augment, this allows you to have an AoE weapon and just spam. If you're not going to rely on her fourth ability to bleed enemies, you can always mod it for Hunter munitions. Okay, with that demonstration aside, let's take a look at how I've built this Garuda build. This is build number 1. And before we get into build, there are some build requirements, and those are Archon Shards. The first 2 shards are going to be the Amber Shards to give me casting speed. Yes, I'm pairing up Madarai and these shards to give me 100% casting speed because I want 0 downtime. It's a very fast-paced type of loadout. You want to be spamming abilities, killing enemies, and moving on to the next set of enemies. And I have 3 energy shards here to increase my energy maximum. This is also going to be crucial for the next build, since the next one is very energy hungry. The focus school is Madarai for sling strength and power transfer, additional strength and casting speed. And now onto the Warframe build. The aura for this build doesn't matter, I just didn't have enough capacity. So this is what we're rocking with. And in the Exilus, I have Prime Surefooted, the best Exilus in the game, because spending less time on your butt is a huge DPS increase. Strength at 183%, with Blind Rage and Umbral Intensify. You may have noticed, I should be getting a lot more than this. Well, it's because of our range. I'm using Stretch, Augur Reach, and Overextended. Overextended reduces my strength, but also boosts my range. Why do we need so much range? It's because I'm using the Bleeding Talons augment. This augment allows me to cast my fourth ability instantaneously and around me. But the unfortunate side is, it reduces my range slightly, so we need as much range as possible so I can increase its radius and reach. So with 265% range, I get 23.85 meters of this cast. However, if you hold down the ability, you can still cast it normally. But why do we need that? Because that requires you to charge it up a bit. And to maintain my buffs and debuffs, I have Primed Continuity to give me 155% duration, so my Nourish, Dread Mirror, and my fourth ability debuff can last longer. In the Arcanes, I have Molt Augmented for the increased strength, so at 250 kills, I also gain 60% strength. And finally, Molt Reconstruct. This allows me to heal myself when I use abilities that use energy, and since I have negative efficiency, this is going to heal me for quite a bit. So it's an endless loop of healing and energy gain, thanks to this Arcane, paired up with Nourish and Bloodletting. Now looking at my primary weapon, this is a Tombfinger primary kit gun, built from the Tombfinger Chamber, Palmaris Grip, and the Splat Loader. Now the build is quite specific, since this is catered to you using Nourish. If you don't have Nourish, you're going to use other mods. My base damage is coming from Primary Merciless. After 12 kills, I gain 365% base damage. Now since I already have base damage, now I need to multiply the damage even more, and that's why I have my Faction mod here. This allows me to deal 2 times more damage with my bleed DOTs, which is pretty damn strong. Multi-shot, a bunch of fire rate, and magazine capacity, taking this all the way to 36 magazine, so I can spam this really fast. And these 2 fire rate mods are not going to be my only ones. And now you may be asking why so much fire rate. It's because of its charge time. Notice how its quick shot radial AoE doesn't deal that much damage, and that's why we want to fully charge our shots so we can have a better damage buff. Prime Firestorm to increase the AoE explosion to 8.93 meters. Now, here's another thing. I have a rank 4 critical delay. This allows me to get my crit chance to 100%, so I'm always critting. But at the same time, it also balances my fire rate, so I don't lose as much fire rate, thanks to its atrocious negative. And finally, Pax Charge. This turns my AoE weapon into a battery, so it never has to worry about ammo running out. I remember what I said about additional fire rate. Well, that's thanks to my companion. When you're picking your companion, make sure it can get over 1,200 shields because of Reinforced Bond. You need to have at least 1,200 shields to get the benefits of this mod. And since I'm using my Hound built from these parts, I can increase my shield value to easily keep up the reinforced bond for additional fire rates. And I've demonstrated this Hound in quite a few videos. But the main thing about this Hound is that it disarms enemies thanks to Repo Audit, and it can also provide additional shields thanks to Guardian and Shield Charger. And one of the best mods for all Sentinels and Robotics in the game is Manifold Bond, as it reduces the cooldown of their abilities if enemies are killed with 3 or more stats effects. And that's easily done thanks to its electric DOT, its radiation priming, and Garuda's Talons. Radiation is important if you're playing in any tile set that has corrupted units, since ancient healers are quite annoying. Alright, with that build out of the way, let's go check out the second one. Okay, here we are with the second build. Now this is quite an interesting one. If you have not seen my Zephyr with Tempest Barrage nuke build video, do go check that out. This one is slightly similar. However, the Zephyr one, of course, does way more damage. This one is pretty funny because you're using your abilities to prime and deal damage at the same time, which is pretty damn crazy and fun. So I'm going to affect one target here, and that's going to give me the healing. Now, the cool thing about her Blood Altar, it can affect 3 enemies at the same time. Notice how I'm using Bloodletting, but I'm getting my health back fairly quickly. Press my 4th ability and just rain down on enemies. Yeah, it's that stupid. Okay, Steel Path demonstration number 2, using the second build. Guys, you gotta sit down for this one because, oh, it's crazy and quite fun. And it's also a carpal tunnel syndrome type of build because it's gonna get your hands hurting as you're gonna be spamming quite a lot of abilities. Notice I also have a floating friend right above us. That's the Nautilus, made for Railjack stuff, but imagine playing Railjack. We're using him for Cordon. Cordon is a juicy precept that does some radial sucking, pulling in enemies towards us, because this build is somewhat of a pseudo camping build. So let's showcase how this build works. And we're also passively healing. And that's thanks to our Sentinel, because it also heals us with a specific mod. So now let's look for victims. I mean enemies. Look how it pulls in enemies. Beautiful. I'm going to have 3 victims here. Press my 3rd ability, 4th ability, and just rain down on enemies. Yes, this is a one-handed build too. This is ridiculous. And if I want additional pulling, if Cordon goes on cooldown, I can use my Magus Anomaly. Make sure to have at least 3 victims so our healing is a lot more potent. Hopefully we get an Acolyte quite early. Look at that! That's an early Acolyte! Let's go! We're gonna prime him with our 4th ability and just rain down with Tempest Barrage. Look at this shit. Oh my god. This is stupid. Bye, Acolyte. Okay, with that demonstration aside, let's take a look at the second build. Now, in the demonstration, I was using Zenric because I forgot to change, but definitely keep with Matarai because of that beautiful additional casting speed and strength. In the aura, I have Brief Respite. This converts energy spent into shields, and I have negative efficiency, and I'm going to be spamming my 1st ability and my 4th ability quite a lot. This aura is going to refill my shields fairly quickly. Range here is at 235% thanks to Overextended and Stretch. However, if you got those beautiful Tau Forge blues, I would say you could drop Prime Flow in favor of Augur Reach. That of course will have you cast your 3rd ability just a bit more. This is why I opted for Prime Flow, to give me that large energy pool. And as you may notice, I'm using 2 augments. Bleeding Talons for the AoE Talons cast, and Viral Tempest to give me Viral on my Tempest Barrage. And of course the same arcanes, Augmented and Reconstruct. Casting my 1st ability heals me as well. So this is even dumber. If you want a bit of comfort, you can use Arcane Energize, because the healing that you get from Blood Altar is pretty damn strong, especially if your strength builds up thanks to Matarai and your Molt Augmented. Now, for the Sentinel build, I'm using the Nautilus here. Number 1 most important mod is, of course, Cordon, just after Guardian. Guardian is just for additional shield regen. However, if you notice you're not taking that much damage, you can just switch these, because the order of mods matter on your Sentinel. But for universal stuff, I do have Guardian at the beginning. Medi-Ray just for some additional healing because I'm that dumb. Mystic Bond allows one of my abilities to not consume energy after my Sentinel has used 5 abilities. Contagious Bond is just there for some additional spread because there will be one enemy that the Sentinel might end up killing. And of course, Manifold Bond to reduce the cooldown. For the weapon, I do have the Hellstrom for priming. It's modded for radiation and toxin. Cold may be very nice. However, if you have cold, you can accidentally slow down Thrax units, which is so annoying because they take a year to go into their ethereal form. Now, why do we have radiation? It's because of ancient healers. Anyway, folks, that has been it for me. I do hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, feel free to leave a like, share, and
subscriber.
For more Warframe content, streams, and so much more, do refer to the description. Thanks for watching, and as always, peace. Bye-bye now.